And I actually shared this story with Terry because I resigned from my job that day. Resigned from surgery that day. I was like, yeah, I'm done. And I told her this story, and she asked me, she's like, what did your colleagues say about you? And I said, they thought I lost my mind. They called me a quack.
Yeah.
And she said, Jen, I want you to know that they called me a quack too. And there's three phases of that. So in the beginning, they call you a quack. And then you get to the point where they're starting to see your results. They're starting to see that you must be doing something. And so then you become like a person of interest. And now she said that she was just invited to be the keynote at the American Academy of oh my God, rheumatologists.
Mhm.
And so now she's the expert. So she said, it's like you spend 5 years as a quack, you spend 5 years in this curiosity phase, and
Mm.
then 5 years as an expert. So she said, you're almost done your quackery. I'm coming up on my 5 years now, but I'm already starting to see it. People who are being treated for breast cancer and, the medical oncologist who, 2 years ago said, I had lost my mind and that's why I left. Now is like, you should do this. I'm not telling you not to do this. You should do this, but you should probably also go see Jen Simmons,
Yeah.
like side of your mouth.
Hello, and welcome back to the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nicolette Richer, and today's episode is for anyone who has ever felt stuck between the system that they trained in and the truth they feel in their heart. Today, I am sitting down with Dr. Jen Simmons, a brilliant breast cancer surgeon who, after her own diagnosis, left her prestigious position to pioneer a new path in functional medicine. This is a raw conversation about the courage to question everything, the hard work of personal healing, and the revolutionary power of putting health before profit. It's a story for every practitioner, every patient, and anyone ready to think differently about what true healing really means. Here is my honest and inspiring talk with Dr. Jen Simmons.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nicolette Richer, and on today's show, I am so excited to welcome Dr. Jen Simmons to the podcast. Welcome, Dr. Simmons.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, really happy to have you here as well. You were just saying that you did 3 interviews already today. How are you feeling?
Yeah, this is a typical day for me.
Typical day.
So, yeah. And seeing as how I'm on a mission to change the world, that's the only way I'm going to do it. So it's just par for the course.
Yeah, podcasts have been amazing for just the amount of information that can get out there so easily. And in a world where people are flying by, you can listen to them in the car, when you're running. It's amazing. Yeah, it's been a life game changer for me as well, because there's just so much that I have access to. So thanks for doing that. And because I know it also takes a lot of time. What's the name of your podcast as well, just for the audience?
Oh, it's Keeping Abreast with Dr. Jen.
Perfect. Really great title, by the way. So everybody, you need to subscribe to her podcast and get all the information that you need. So Jen, really what I would love to start off with for our audience, because it's not every day that an MD is teaching what you are teaching, right? We have so many people in the field. They all went to the same universities that you went to. They studied on a little bit of oncology. They had a clinical rotation. They, read the same textbooks, and then they go out there and they start taking on patients. And basically, we have doctors telling some patients, you know what, your diet has nothing to do with your disease. We have patients or doctors telling patients that, this is the protocol, but if they go see another oncologist or another MD or another doctor, they could be prescribed a completely different protocol for the exact same type of breast condition. And so how did you get into the space and being just so radically different?
Yeah. Well, I didn't start off so radically different. I spent 17 years as a very, very conventional breast cancer surgeon, who I was running the cancer program for my hospital. So I come from a very, very conventional space. How I got into breast cancer is that I come from a breast cancer family.
Mhm.
Growing up, my first cousin was a woman named Linda Creed. She was a singer-songwriter in the 1970s and 1980s. She wrote all the music for the Spinners and the Stylistics. I am heavy duty aging myself right now. She was
Great.
beautiful, brilliant, larger than life, the queen of Motown sound in Philadelphia, and she was my hero.
Wow.
Her most famous song that she ever wrote was The Greatest Love of All, though she wrote 54 hits. But her
Wow.
most famous song was The Greatest Love of All, which, I mean, you couldn't be alive on this planet and not know that song.
Mhm.
So, my cousin was literally a rock star. And at the young age of 37, she lost her life to breast cancer.
Wow.
And she was one of the many women in my family that lost their life to breast cancer. But Linda, because she was my hero, because I was 16 when she died,
Yeah.
because I watched her breast cancer death,
Yeah.
it had a tremendous impression on me. And her life and ultimately her death gave birth to my life's purpose. And I
Wow.
did the only thing I knew how to do. I became a doctor. I became a surgeon. I became the first fellowship trained breast surgeon in Philadelphia. And I did that for a really long time and I did it really well. And I did it long enough for my aunt to be diagnosed and long enough for my mother to be diagnosed.
Wow.
And when I was about 15 years into my career, I got my own diagnosis and I
Mhm.
had my own opportunity to be a patient. And there's nothing like the words coming at you to make you think about them.
Mhm.
And I was sitting in the office of my friend and colleague and physician, and he was telling me that I needed surgery and chemo radiation, and I was going to be on lifelong medication. And something just instinctively told me that there was something more, that there
Mhm.
was something that I was missing, that surely there had to be another solution other than cutting and drugging and burning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I didn't understand that these were the standards of care. I did. It
Mhm.
wasn't that I didn't tell people day in and day out that this is how we treat cancer.
Yeah.
I completely appreciated the irony that these were words that I said to women all day, every day for years.
Yeah.
But something made me walk away and I went on a journey of self exploration. This wasn't about anyone or anything but me. And I was very fortunate very early on to learn about Mark Hyman. And if I'm being honest, when he walked on the stage and introduced himself as a functional medicine physician, now bearing in mind this is 2017. And so, though he has a lot of notoriety now, I don't think that he did then.
Right. Yeah.
And when he introduced himself as a functional medicine physician, I said, I've been a doctor for 20 years. There's no such thing as a functional medicine physician. What is this quack talking about?
Right.
Right. And then by the grace of God, I remember that I was sick and that I was there for a reason and that I should check my ego at the door. And I did. And I listened. And thank God he did. And thank God I did, because everything that he was saying was basically telescoping not only what my own healing journey was going to look like, but
Mhm.
what the rest of my career was going to look like. Because what he was saying was so unclear to me at that time. And when he said it, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. And like most doctors, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame,
Yeah.
right? And so we are taught that this is how you treat cancer, and we are taught that cancer is the problem.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I heard Dr. Hyman speak that I realized that cancer is not the problem. Cancer is the symptom of the problem.
Yeah.
And where we need to focus is on what is causing that symptom, what is driving that symptom. Because unless you deal with the why, unless you deal with the inflammation, unless you deal with whatever is causing that imbalance, because cancer is a normal response to an abnormal environment,
Yeah.
and it's whatever is driving that environmental shift that deserves our attention, then unless you do that, what is stopping that cancer from coming back? Or what is stopping the next manifestation of the disease? Because the truth is that most women who get breast cancer don't die of breast cancer.
Yeah.
Most women that get breast cancer die of heart disease because it's the same inflammation that's driving these processes that never gets acknowledged, that never gets dealt with in the course of conventional medicine. So if all you focus on is the tumor,
Mhm.
that's all you get,
Yeah.
right? Because what we focus on grows. And what we need to focus on is healing. What we need to focus on is health. And that's what I learned that day from Dr. Hyman. And that's what I spent the next 3 years of my life submerged in, trying
Mhm.
to figure out how to drive health. I enrolled in the Institute for Functional Medicine, took every course they offered, got certification, started to study at A4M. And I'm a student of life. I'm always learning, I'm always improving. And I am now in a place where I know that I don't know everything. And there's always more to learn, and there's always more to do. And that the most important thing that we can all do is approach life with curiosity.
Mhm.
Don't pretend that what we were educated on in medical school is the truth or anything final. And I'm not disparaging our medical system, but it is a ridiculous notion to believe that everyone with heart disease has heart disease for the same reason,
Yeah.
that everyone with breast cancer has breast cancer for the same reason. So for us to standardize treatment, I mean, that's why standardized treatment doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Because for us to standardize these treatments when everyone is coming to that space from a different place, it doesn't make any sense. And so,
Yeah. And this part I really want to touch on here too, because, there's the concept of the exposome, right? So that is what
mhm,
our human body is exposed to,
yeah,
right? So it
yeah,
could
for
be
sure.
intense grief and trauma and anxiety as a
Yeah,
result of whatever situation in life. It
yeah,
could be political
mhm,
warfare or environmental disaster. It could be toxins coming at you in your workplace or in your home, chemicals in a farming community being sprayed on you. It could be your genes, right? So, we have the exposome around us, but we also have our
yeah,
genes are very much affected by that.
yeah,
This is the part is that when we do go to the doctor, and doctors are pattern makers, just like non-doctors are as
mm,
well. We
yeah,
humans love making patterns and seeing patterns. So if 10 people come in with chest pain, then we're going to treat those 10 people the same. But the 11th person who comes in, it's like, well, yeah, they have chest pain, but it's not the result of, whatever's happening.
cardiac disease, right?
Exactly. It could
Yeah,
be the result of literally an emotionally broken heart. It could
mhm,
be the result of a
yep,
rib out of place. It could be the result of everything.
yep,
And this is the part that I see. We are in a world, and we've been in here not for very long. Our medical system it's a very short system. And
mhm.
this
Well,
system,
at least the way that we're practicing it,
the way that we're
right?
practicing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have a book here. It weighs 500 pounds. It's so heavy, but it's medicine and illustrated history of our entire medical, like from the beginning of time up until when it was
yeah,
published. But it shows, for example, the way that cancer was treated 100 years ago. It's like, well, we'll
mhm.
cut it out, but we'll cut out all the muscle, the back, the front of the
Yeah, that's
in
called the
which the breast.
Halsted procedure.
Exactly.
It was horrible.
Oh, and you see the pictures in there, but before
Yeah,
that, there was a lot of bloodletting and teeth pulling.
mhm,
And before that, there was a lot of, praying to the gods and almost like witchcraft and medicine. And, so we are evolving, but, and this is why we can't lambaste the medical system because we're just in a very short history right now of doing it the way that we're doing it. And it is
for
changing
sure.
very rapidly as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So can you I want to go back to that moment when Dr. Mark Hyman comes out, you listen to him talk about functional medicine, I love that your ability to be just really vulnerable right now in expressing how your own ego played a part, that you
Mhm.
had to check the ego. But I love the fact that you did, you know, question and say, who is this quack? Because that's another thing in our history, right? Where
Mhm.
when professionals come out, and again, a lot of times these are your peers who trained at the same, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and but they're doing something so radically different that that's the first place our brain goes to, is to snake oil or quackery, and
Mhm.
we just don't have the ability to see that. And I just really appreciate that you had the ability to let down your guard and let that information in. But
Well, I think a lot of that is fear-based, right? It's if I was really a good doctor and if that was really real, I would know about that.
right.
So it must be quackery. It must not be real because I don't know about that. And that is instilled into us very early in medical school. We are taught that if it is not taught to us in medical school, it's either not important,
Mm,
not true, maybe both, right? And we think of ourselves as critical thinkers. I mean, physicians think of themselves as critical thinkers.
yeah.
But the truth is that that might have been true before. But once you get into medical school, a good doctor, a good student, a good anything in that arena is someone who memorizes and regurgitates. And
Mm,
the person that is thinking outside of the box, that is saying, but why, but what if, those are the people that are considered the troublemakers, or
mhm,
they're the quacks, or they're, like that is not thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the system. That is not rewarded in our system at all. And it
mm,
often takes many, many years for that person who stepped outside of the system to receive acclaim and
mhm.
get acknowledged for what they're doing. So I remember I had this whole talk with Terry Walls. Do you know who Terry
Yeah,
Walls
Dr.
is?
Terry Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
reversed. Yeah.
So she's an amazing, amazing woman who, for your listeners who don't know her story, I'm going to give it to you quickly. She is an internal medicine doctor in the Midwest, was running the residency program for her hospital, running the VA internal medicine department. And she got primary progressive MS, which is a very, very aggressive form of MS. And she went from being a super high functioning person to a zero gravity wheelchair in 2 years. And a zero gravity wheelchair means that you can't even support your own body weight. And essentially, she was let go by the hospital. I mean, they said, you can't fulfill your duties. And remember that because she was so high up in the hospital, because she was so high ranking, she actually
Hey, beautiful humans. It's Scott from Richer Health. I just wanted to share something with you. I was chatting with Dr. Nicolette Richer the other day, and she said to me, over the years, I've met so many people who tell me I've tried everything: diets, medications, yoga, therapy, juice cleanses. And while all these can help, they all have their place. I've learned that true healing doesn't last when we keep treating the body and the mind as if they're separate. That's when it hit me. Healing can't be one-dimensional, and that's exactly why we launched Kulandira Healing. The modern world splits wellness into silos. Your doctor treats your body, and your therapist treats your mind. But what happens when they don't speak the same language? This is the work we've been exploring, a healing path that bridges science, soul, trauma-informed care, and food as medicine. It's where physical healing meets emotional liberation. Metabolic nutrition, the foundation of our Eat Real to Heal protocol, can rebuild your health at a cellular level. I've seen it reverse diabetes, cancer, and autoimmune conditions. But even people eating the cleanest diets can stay stuck if their nervous system is locked in stress, trauma, or repression, because the body holds the score. And that's why we bring both together. Real, deep healing isn't either or. It's all of you, body, mind, and spirit. So if you're ready to explore psychedelic therapy, visit kulandira.com and book a free consultation with Dr. Nicolette Richer. You'll also find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening.
had access to every medicine, to every study, to everything that our system had to offer. And none of it worked. She only got worse and worse.
Mhm.
So when she was let go, she decided she had been a vegetarian her whole life, but a like very grain heavy, cheese heavy vegetarian, which most of us in this space know that they're not, they can be very inflammatory for many people. And so she, for some reason, I don't remember exactly what inspired her, but something inspired her to go on a whole food, grain free diet. And in 2 weeks, she could stand.
Mhm.
And in 2 months, she could walk distances. And she, and in 2 months, she could ride her bike for 20 miles. A woman who couldn't get out of her wheelchair suddenly was biking 20 miles just by changing her diet.
It's
And then
amazing.
she added in more things. She added in sauna, she added in electrical stim, and she got to the point where she was full on functioning. Her brain was back, everything was back. And the head of the hospital said, "Great, welcome back. We're so happy to have you. And you need to write a book.
Yeah.
You need to write a protocol because you need to teach people how to do this. I mean, look what you did." And she did. She wrote a book. She wrote a protocol. She helps thousands and thousands and thousands of people recover their health after MS.
Yeah.
And so she was super inspirational for me. And I remember actually the day that I left surgery because I had just met Terry and I just heard her story. And I come into my office and there's a 19-year-old being wheeled in by her mother. Now, my office is 30 feet from the elevator, and her MS was so progressed that she couldn't walk those 30 feet from the elevator to my office. So I had just met Dr. Walls. I'm like so enthusiastic. I'm a kid in a candy store, like just so giddy with excitement to share this. And I tell this woman and her mother all about the Walls protocol and how MS can be reversed. And there's so much hope for the future. And she let me go on for about 60 seconds, put her hand up and said, "Doc, are you going to do my biopsy or not?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah,
Yes.
not everyone wants to help themselves, right? Some people just want the pills, some people just want the knife, some people just want the drug, and that's okay. But I didn't want to work with those people. I wasn't one of those people. I wanted to do everything I can to empower my health, and I wanted to work with people that wanted to do that. And I actually shared this story with Terry because I resigned from my job that day. I resigned from surgery that day. I was like, yeah, I'm done. And I told her this story and she asked me, she's like, what did your colleagues say about you? And I said, they thought I lost my mind. They called me a quack.
Yeah.
And she said, "Jen, I want you to know that they called me a quack too." And there's 3 phases of that. So in the beginning, they call you a quack. And then you get to the point where they're starting to see your results. They're starting to see that you must be doing something. And so then you become like a person of interest. And now she said that she was just invited to be the keynote at the American Academy of oh my God, rheumatologists.
Mhm.
And so now she's the expert. So she said, it's like you spend 5 years as a quack, you spend 5 years in this curiosity phase, and
Mm.
then 5 years as an expert. So she said, you're almost done your quackery. I'm coming up on my 5 years now, but I'm already starting to see it. People who are being treated for breast cancer and, the medical oncologist who, 2 years ago said, I had lost my mind and that's why I left. Now is like, you should do this. I'm not telling you not to do this. You should do this, but you should probably also go see Jen Simmons,
Yeah.
like side of your mouth.
Well, and
So,
it's hard and scary for them too, because, we have a system that's built on risk aversion, right? Our
mhm.
medical system and the amount of insurance, and you could speak to this, that, medical doctors have to carry, or anybody who's under a licensing body has to carry. It's huge.
Yeah.
Whereas myself, I'm a PhD researcher. I am insured as an educator. My insurance is like $800 a year or whatever it
Yeah.
is, 1,300
Yeah.
bucks a year. It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Nothing.
But I stick within the bounds. I don't prescribe, I don't diagnose. I simply work with my clients. I educate them. I like make sure that they have this podcast, they have books to read, they have literature. I show them, I
Yeah.
teach them how to be researchers themselves. And so then they're gathering their information and they can apply it. But I don't have that same weight on my head
Yeah.
of, going to court,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
I
thank
see
God I've
my
never been to court.
no, exactly, and the
Let's
amount of
hope.
doctors I know who did make the switch where they recognized, wow, our bodies actually need micronutrients, not just macronutrients,
Yeah.
or that, what, we have to look at, nutrients in general, and that there might be another way, and how quickly they lost their license. And that's terrifying for somebody who spent $300,000 on med school and their whole career, and they want to help people, and then now they
Yeah.
have to like learn how to be an entrepreneur or shifts. I get that. So I get why this system, it needs to, and it's just changing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
Uh,
feels fast, but then other times I'm like, it's still a big ship and it's turning slowly.
yeah. But that's, that side of it is kind of our perspective, but from the conventional medical side, I wish they understood that we're their partners and not their adversaries.
Exactly.
Because I'm always clear. I don't tell people not to do conventional
Me neither.
medical treatments for cancer. And I would never, even my patients who I'm working with one on one, I
Mhm.
would never tell them not to do something. I help to educate them. I want them to make the right decision for them. And, I do not believe that everyone with a hormone positive tumor should be on an aromatase inhibitor. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why would everyone get the same treatment? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
But I'm very, very clear about the fact that I think that this is an and, it's not an or. So
exactly.
people should pursue conventional treatment and see what's right for them. And they should be primarily concerned with what they're eating, what they're thinking, how they're moving, how they're sleeping, how they're drinking,
Yeah.
how their environment is in, on, and around them,
Mhm.
and how they're handling stress, how, exactly how they're thinking, and what they are living life for. What is your purpose? How are you connected? Because it's only about our connection to the world that gives us longevity. Like,
Yeah.
if we're not here serving a purpose, if we're not here connected to other life forces,
Yeah.
then we don't have any reason to be here and our energy dies out. So
Exactly.
it's really about, like, what purpose are we serving in the world, which is not to say that everyone has to be like a medical provider or changing the world or, a billionaire. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, like, everyone has their own purpose, and God doesn't expect you to fulfill mine or me to fulfill yours, right? We're all here with our own unique purpose, and no one's purpose is more important than the other one's.
Exactly.
My mission is big and my lift is hard and heavy, but that's because that's what God intended for me.
Hmm.
And it doesn't make what I'm doing any more important than the person that's raising a beautiful family, right? Because who knows what the intention of that family is? I think about all the time, like, Moses's parents weren't, I mean, yes, they were leaders in the community, but they weren't Moses.
Yeah.
The reason that they were there and their purpose was there was so that they could raise Moses and
Yeah.
Miriam,
Exactly.
right? And so we have to remember that there are really, really, really important reasons for every single person to be here on this earth.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is, I see that day in and day out. And there's enough literature that's been published to also prove that, when individuals have often terminal conditions and then they discover their purpose, all of a sudden their health gets better. And
Mhm.
this Dr. Lissa Rankin, we, talk about her all the time on the podcast, and her work, Mind Over Medicine and Sacred Medicine. And, she's brilliant. And that's another medical doctor who left the system because she said, wait a minute. I have all these patients I keep bumping into. And when I ask them, so the meds worked? You're better? They go, oh no, I never took the meds. I never did the treatment. But then what did you do? oh, well, I divorced my asshole husband and,
Mhm.
finally had the
I
energy
had a
to get
husband. We call that a husbandectomy.
a husbandectomy. That's amazing. Yes. And or maybe I don't want to just blame the guys out there. Maybe, we're getting rid of the wives as well.
Uh-huh.
Or when they find their purpose and they change their careers and then they, go and start traveling, and that was a long lost dream, or crocheting. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mhm.
But you start living the life that you want to be living.
Uh-huh.
And all of a
And that
sudden
you
it's
were
amazing.
probably intended to be living,
Exactly. And the
because we
pain
we
goes
see
away.
a lot of roadblocks along the way, right?
Yeah.
And some of them are unnecessary roadblocks. Some of them are really meant to teach us things,
Yeah.
right? Some of them are put there to stop us in our tracks and say, is this where I'm supposed to be going?
Yeah. Well, and isn't that the art of surrendering and acceptance as well? And actually saying, you know what, it's okay. My life is supposed to be like this right now, and I
Mhm.
accept it. And the minute we do that, we release the stress from we don't have that duality happening inside. And we
Mhm.
were just talking about this on our coaching call, the relationship between stress and our digestive health, the relationship between stress and our liver, the relationship between our stress on our kidneys and our heart. And so then we're just taking that pressure off, and it's physical stress I'm talking about, even though it's emotional. It relates to physical stress, which
Mhm.
relates to physical damage on a cellular level, right?
Yeah,
On tissue level, organ level, everything. So yeah, so important. And that is the beauty of functional medicine, is that it does teach that it's more than just, you have a headache and you take Tylenol.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember Jeffrey Bland's tack theory. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but
No, teach
if you
me.
have a if you have a tack in your foot, you can either take a lot of aspirin
Yeah.
or you can pull the tack out,
Right. So I love.
right? And so most of our medical system is taking a lot of aspirin. It's
Hmm.
symptom suppression, right? And we're really not taught to be that intuitive and think about what all of our tacks are.
Yeah.
And like you just said, whatever is provoking dysfunction in our body, we 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 need to look for it.
Hmm.
And it can be a bad relationship, it can be like a difficult job.
Yeah.
And I'm not implying that life should be easy, because I think we confuse that.
Mm.
I, life is hard, and life has always been hard, right? Like we don't have it easier than in biblical times. We just have it different. They had things like they had to cross deserts and things like that. We don't have to do that. We have airplanes, but we have plenty of other challenges and obstacles that make life really hard. So I don't think the point of life is to be easy. I think the point of life is to be meaningful,
Hmm.
and whatever that meaning is for you.
Yeah.
And
You just
sometimes
remind me.
we avoid the meaningful work because it's hard.
Yeah. I see that happening a lot. We have several businesses, so we have several employees, and the moment anything gets a little bit tough, it's amazing how sometimes they're like, I can't work today. And I'm like, but nobody died. There wasn't a war. It's just like something didn't work out with your visa not coming through today. It might come through tomorrow,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But it's this resilience that I feel like we've lacked.
Hmm.
And maybe because baby boomers have made our lives very comfortable, and the industrial revolution gave us,
Yeah.
convenience and all of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely needs to change. There's one question I want to come back to that you talked about. You were talking about it at the beginning, and conventionally, often when we hear that, your aunt had cancer, your mom had cancer, you get diagnosed with cancer, so then it's the genetic card that gets pulled out. And was there a genetic element to these cancers that run in your family?
So, technically, we don't have any known mutation. I mean, everyone in my family has been tested. And for as long as I was in conventional medicine, I was convinced like there has to be something. We just haven't discovered it yet. Like, how can every woman in my family, although my mother had colon, not breast, and I
Right.
had thyroid. But how did every woman in every generation, my grandfather was one of 13, all the women got breast cancer. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So I figured there had to be something. There isn't. And we still don't know about the something. But when we think about our genes are more or less a suggestion. And it is the environment that affects our genes that ends up being what happens to us. So our genotype, how we look genetically, isn't always our phenotype, how we look physically to the world. And what happens a lot when we look at obesity, when we look at heart disease, when we look at cancer, people in the family are often growing up in the same environment and repeating history in terms of habits, how they eat, how they sleep, how they move, So take obesity, for instance. Obesity is generational for sure, but it's not genetic.
Mm-hmm.
It is the generation after generation after generation doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So, I come from a family of overweight women where generation after generation after generation, they were overweight. But I chose to break that pattern. Do I have the same genes they have? For sure. For sure, I have the same genes they have. But I chose to break the pattern because I don't eat like them and I don't move like them. So, I come from a family of lifelong non-exercisers. I'm a daily exerciser. I come from a family that eats a very unhealthy diet. I eat a very healthy diet. I fast every single day. Sometimes I do prolonged fast. So it is a matter of creating the environment that fosters health. And the genes actually have very little to do with it. And we can reprogram many of those genes. Now, there are some genes that you're not going to reprogram, right? Like your eye color is your eye color, your hair color is your hair color, although you can change that for sure. But how tall you're going to be, that kind of thing, you're probably not going to change that, although diet does influence some of that. But and there are some genetic diseases that are probably not preventable, but for the vast majority, the ones that are environmental, those are preventable, and that you can work to determine whether or not those genes are expressed.
Exactly. And this is the biggest piece that I really wish was taught in school at a very
Mhm.
young age so that, when kids are graduating and they're going off to the doctors for the first time, they're out there eating and drinking in their 20s and they're not eating well, because they don't have lots of money, lots of stress in school. And,
Yeah.
then they get sick. And then the first question
And convenient food is cheap.
yeah, convenient food is so cheap and
Mhm.
well, getting more expensive, but actually more expensive than what I teach my clients to cook for themselves. But it is cheap and it's convenient and it's easy and it's just there. But then it really creates a very complicated life
Yeah.
after that. But the sad thing is, these young kids go into the doctor's office and their doctor's like, "Oh yeah, this must be genetic." Or the second piece that they tell is if they do get diagnosed with something, they're told you're going to have this for the rest of your life. It's not
Yeah.
reversible.
Yeah.
And that's the other damage.
Well, it's not reversible the way that they're dealing with it,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you have someone with metabolic imbalance and they're at the point where they have so much insulin resistance that they need
Hmm.
um, more insulin or something like that, that it's not reversible by doing that. However, if you take that same person and teach them how to eat on a whole food, plant based, ketogenic diet,
Yeah.
their diabetes goes away.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
So,
amazing.
but the must be genetic thing
Hmm.
makes a lot of people feel more comfortable
Yeah.
because it takes away personal responsibility. And
Hmm.
again, it goes back to the woman in my office with MS who put her hand up in my face and said, "Are you going to do my biopsy or not?" Because she was not interested in taking control of her health. And I've had many women over the years with metastatic disease who can't listen to me talk
Hmm.
because it's so much easier for them to blame the drugs for not working
Yeah.
than for them to blame themselves for not doing what it takes to reverse cancer. And I want to be very clear because I don't want anyone to suffer under the weight of blame and shame, because
Mhm.
that's not what this is about. And I do believe that there are some cancers and some processes that are too far along to reverse. But I have seen miracles.
Yeah.
I get to see them every day. And I believe that where there is hope and connection, you can reverse disease.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot and it takes a lot of commitment. But if you don't, that isn't something that you should feel badly about. Like, I think at the end of the day, God rules the world, and maybe you're called to something else.
Yeah, and it's also what you're saying about that woman in the office, saying, "Can you just do the biopsy?" I see her as being in exactly the same position you were in, front of Dr. Mark Hyman, where where you're like, okay, my ego is there, but there's also fear setting in. And, in your case, you were like, there was probably a whole, lineup of events. Like you talked about the fact that cancer was in your family and that, you'd already been thinking about this for a while. Whereas maybe for that individual, this is the first time they're hearing it. So of course, there's all of these walls that are going to go up that she
Mhm.
probably couldn't even hear you, where, who knows, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, maybe she watched a few documentaries, read a few books. And then if she were to approach you today, she'd be like able to receive, she's not looking at you
Maybe.
thinking quackery,
Yeah.
snake oil doctor. And
Yeah.
so the patient's also going through the same things. And
For
uh,
sure.
yeah. And so, and this is
And
the
again, it's scary to go outside of the system
so
because
scary.
lots of the time, their doctor, who they trust,
Hmm.
is going to go against them. I mean, I was just on someone's podcast this morning, and she said the number of women that contact her because they don't want to have a mammogram
Hmm.
because they know that mammograms hurt. And, if it were just about pain, women are tough. Like,
Yeah.
we can put up with pain when we know it's for the good, but
Yeah.
they also don't want to get radiated because
Yeah.
they know that radiation causes cancer. So why wouldn't mammograms cause cancer? And they get a tremendous amount of pushback from their doctors. And in
Hmm.
fact, some doctors abandon them
Yeah.
and say, if you're not going to follow my advice, if you're not going to get a mammogram, then you can go find a new doctor.
Mhm.
And it's they put them in this terrible position because they're like, either subject yourself to danger or I won't help you.
Mhm.
And I know that this is out of their own personal responsibility. It comes back to, they're told that that is the standard of care, so they have to recommend a mammogram, or they could get sued or miss something, or there's a lot of fear around that, missing something. um and also, they see you as a difficult patient. Like,
Mhm.
they just want everyone to listen to them and make their lives easier, because their lives are really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be a doctor now.
Yeah.
You have 30 patients to see in a day. Some people are seeing 50 patients in a day. You have no time with them. You have no time to be able to talk, to be able to scratch the surface and understand what's going on with them. So you just want to check your boxes and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a very, I've seen this and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. One of the stats that most people don't realize is that doctors and nurses face higher suicide rates than the general public. So
Yeah,
we
for
have
sure.
doctors. The second piece is that, and I've seen this directly with the doctors that I've taught, who've shown me their slit wrists, who've shown me and told me the stories of attempting to take their own lives. But there's not really anybody to help them. And they're in the system where they also know that a lot of the treatments have not helped them. So then they don't know what to do. And when they go out of the box, then they lose all the people they went to school with, all the people that are their friends also then shun them as being quacks. So they lose their community. There's so many pieces. And as well, doctors went into healthcare as these students who think like, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to help people, I'm going to help heal people, and then they get in there and then they realize they're part of this system that's 30 patients a day, 50 patients. Like, how are you truly helping somebody?
Yeah.
Right, you just end up being like, okay, here's another pill, here's another pill. And then you see the statistics not improving. So are you really like helping someone? So that is also a major moral, ethical, talk about making meaning of your life and how you
Yeah.
need to make meaning to be able to heal. Well, they're losing that meaning. So it's really hard for doctors. And then we're not seeing what happens behind the scenes with all the coding with the insurance agencies that needs to be done, how hard it is to like just manage an office in itself. So there's so many elements there.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And you certainly understand because on top of all of that logistical nonsense that they're dealing with, they're also taking on the pain of their patients and they have such limited time to help them that it's like everything is interrupted, interrupted, interrupted. And so nothing gets finalized, nothing gets done, nothing gets completed. There's no conclusion to anything. It just everything is in limbo, which is such an uncomfortable feeling for everyone involved,
Yeah, it's
right?
like there's
Like
no success. You never get to
there's
have
no
that success,
success.
which gives you the
It's like,
motivation.
yeah, it's like the patient goes to the doctor, they don't know what happened, they don't understand what happened. They don't know what's wrong with them. The doctor doesn't know what's wrong with them. Here I'll order tests, come back in 3 weeks, and like everything is in limbo.
Yeah.
And it's just so uncomfortable. And so, our system is very broken. And I do pray that it changes soon. I do pray um that we have a complete overhaul. It's tough because not everyone wants that, right? Like the pharmaceutical companies think it's working great.
Yeah.
And so, there's
And
that.
this is not a conspiracy theory when we say this. This is the thing
Yeah.
that people need to understand is
Yeah.
that there are systems built where a lot of people's jobs are at stake. There's a lot of shareholders who have their money at stake. And it's a system that does work well for the people who are invested in it. And so
Yeah.
trying to take down that big ship, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, the other side of it is that right now, the only way that doctors are paid, the only way that hospitals are paid is when people are sick.
exactly.
So that's the only thing that's rewarded. And so it's very hard to fix a system that
Mm,
only rewards sickness.
yeah.
And so right now, there's really no incentive for doctors to educate themselves
Mhm.
as to how to drive health because they don't get paid for that. And the hospitals, like they have zero interest in people getting better. In fact, I spoke to the chief medical officer of one of the major, major, major hospitals in Philadelphia at a time when he was asking me to come on and be the first chair of integrative oncology in the country.
Mhm.
And I said to him, "What are we going to do about the cafeteria?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I can't have people waking up from cancer surgery and having eggs and bacon and pancakes and sausage for breakfast. Like, no." And he's like, "Yeah, the cafeteria is off the table." I said, What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the Price Gurney scores, which are the scores of which the hospitals are graded. Part of the score is how good the food is. And if
Mm,
we make the food healthy, it doesn't taste good, people give us lower scores." So I'm like, okay, forget about that. We have a captive audience. We have a teachable moment here. I mean, these are people that have just had heart attacks, that had cardiac surgery, they just had cancer, they had cancer surgery. Like there is no better time to teach them how to be healthy. And he's like, "Well, why would we want to do that?" I'm like, to get them healthy so that they don't have to have this happen again." He was like, "But we get paid when it happens again. We don't want to do less procedures. We don't want to do less surgeries." And I
right.
was like, "Oh, yeah, we don't have the same interests." Like, I want to help people get healthy and you want to make money, which I understand, right? Like, they're in business, but we're not aligned. We're not after the same thing. And until we change our medical system to reward health instead of illness, we're just going to all continue to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, we're probably going to have to wait to the point what China waited on before they called me to go and educate hundreds of physicians over there on how to reverse diabetes. And then they gutted their main hospital to be able to teach the public. They built a wellness center there so they can teach. But that was driven by economic need because their diabetes rates were increasing so fast in 2018 that they're like, it's going to cripple us
Yeah.
financially. So that's
Yeah.
when then governments go, okay, about face, let's do it differently. The
Well,
part I
we're
wanna
going
come
to have it. We're going to
we're
have
gonna have
it
it for
because of
sure.
Alzheimer's.
Yes, and
We're for
dementia
sure going to
and
have it.
mental health and
Type 3 diabetes.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So I wanna come back to the mammograms because let's talk
My favorite topic.
mammograms.
Yeah.
What in the world do we need to know about this? What is
Yeah.
the truth behind it?
Yeah.
What do women need to know?
So let's first talk about like what the intentions of the mammographic screening program were, because I think they were very well intended, right? So in the 1970s, we rolled out this mammographic screening program, and it's based on a premise that if you discover breast cancer small and early, that you could prevent more treatment, prevent more advanced disease, prevent deaths from breast cancer. It's a lovely theory. It just doesn't happen to be true,
Mhm.
because that theory is based on the assumption that breast cancer growth is linear and predictable, and it is neither. So there are very small cancers that have aggressive biology. And just because you found them small or early doesn't mean that those people are going to have good outcomes. And there are very large cancers that do not have aggressive biology. And so even though they appear large on a mammogram, they're not meaningful.
Mhm.
And then there's everything in between. And so we rolled out the mammographic screening program based on this premise, and people went to have screening. We screened 37 million women every single year in the United States based on the premise that mammograms save lives.
Mhm.
And no one asked if that was true, and it's not.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we look at the populations that screen and the populations that don't, when we control for access to medical care, so everyone gets the same treatment, whether they were diagnosed by mammo or diagnosed just because they presented and they can feel a mass or whatever, the survival is exactly the same.
Right.
And when we look at the numbers, yes, mammogram might be picking up these lesions with like 4 millimeters less in size or 5 millimeters less in size, but the survival is not different. The treatment is not different.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about, are we really helping people by doing this? Because the incidence, the incidence of breast cancer just continues to rise. Well, where's it coming from? So you
Mhm.
could argue that part of it is from the environment, but I can also argue when you look at the incidence and you look at when breast cancer really started to rise, it was in 2012. Well, what did we introduce in 2012? Digital breast tomosynthesis. So we took a study and we doubled or tripled the amount of radiation that people are getting, because we went from doing an x-ray to essentially doing a CAT scan of the breast.
Mm.
And here goes the breast cancer incidence rate. Now, the thing is, no matter how many mammograms we do every year, the same exact number of women present with aggressive disease. No matter how many mammograms we do every year, the same exact number of women die of breast cancer. We are not affecting the bottom line by screening with mammogram. What are we affecting? The breast cancer incidence.
Yeah.
So, more biopsies, more procedures, more drugs, more radiation, more treatment. Probably because we're causing some of those breast cancers by radiating women every year.
Mhm.
Definitely, we are over treating. We're treating women who would not have developed clinical disease, but because we see this 5 millimeter something and we push this woman to get a biopsy, and the biopsy happens to show cancer, most of which would have regressed on its own without doing anything. And now we consign them to a life with a breast cancer diagnosis and those treatments for breast cancer are not benign. So those treatments for breast cancer fundamentally change a woman's health going forward.
Yeah.
So now, even if she would, for the person that wouldn't have had heart disease, now we're giving them radiation, which affects the heart. We're giving them chemotherapy, which affects the heart and the brain and the bones and the muscles and the joints and
Microbiome and
yeah. And
yeah.
we're giving them where a lot of them are getting hormonal blockade because a certain percentage, the majority of tumors will have estrogen receptors on them, which PS, normal breast cells have estrogen receptors on them. So this is not a hallmark of cancer. This is the hallmark of a normal cell. And then, the consequences of estrogen deprivation are not insignificant. So we're consigning these women to lives with heart disease, dementia, osteoporosis, urovaginal dysfunction. I mean, these are not insignificant things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all based on we're screening with mammogram. So, I think that no one should have a screening mammogram ever, ever. There is no benefit to screening with mammogram. But at the same time, people feel like they need to be proactive. They want to be proactive. They want to do something, and they want to do something more than self.
Hi, it's Scott from Team Richer Health, and I'm super excited to share our team's 20-year vision. We will be building Canada's very first chronic disease reversal and mental health disorder reversal hotel and wellness center right here in the heart of the Cowichan Valley, British Columbia. This will be a state-of-the-art, 100% plant-based, integrative health facility, a place for education, healing, regenerative tourism, and sustainable community building. It's more than a wellness center. It's a mission designed to help people around the world reverse chronic disease, overcome anxiety and depression, and return to their families healthy and thriving. This project will also create meaningful work and a lasting impact within a local community charged up for this project. But grand visions require big support. That's why we're inviting passionate investors who believe in healing and global wellness to join us as founding partners in bringing this first of its kind project to life. We would love your support in helping us spread the word. And if you know someone who's passionate about creating real life impact and might be interested in investing, we would love to connect. You'll find all the details in the show notes, or you can reach out to us directly at richerhealth.ca. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of this vision.
Breast examination, which I'm a huge proponent of.
Yeah, me too.
So for those that want to do something, the only option for them before was thermography plus ultrasound. Thermography alone is not enough. It's never enough. So please don't go out and think that I am advocating for thermography alone. I am not. Thermography shows inflammation, but it is not a screening test for breast cancer. It has to be done in conjunction with another test. But now QT imaging is available. So QT is a revolutionary new FDA approved way to screen for breast cancer that has 40 times the resolution of MRI.
Wow.
And so without compression, without radiation, without pain, a perfectly comfortable, quite frankly, meditative experience, you can in 10 to 20 minutes be imaged for breast cancer with the most sensitive and definitive test that we have available right now.
Wow.
And QT will change the way that we image breasts forever, because certainly not in my lifetime or yours, we won't see a better imaging test. It is functional imaging, which means that we can see something and we have the ability to count cells. So if we see something, we would bring someone back in 60 days and measure a doubling time. Cancers have a doubling time of less than 100 days. Things that are not cancer, things that are benign, have a doubling time of greater than 100 days. And so though you won't have a biopsy, though you won't have a piece of paper that says what it is, we're not going to name the baby, but that you can go and know that you don't have anything to worry about. And we just re-image you again in a year. And so this is going to revolutionize screening.
Wow. This
Yeah.
is amazing. And this is the beauty about where we are in this day and age. We have technology that is developing really quickly.
Yeah.
We have technology that, we're able to prove doesn't work with all the statisticians out there. You can look at mammograms and say, and I'm really glad that you said that because I've been, doing the research for years, and every year I still have not been able to find a compelling case to say, go get a mammogram. So for myself, I've never had one, but I get all the stories from my clients who have had them, who've been misdiagnosed by them, who
Mhm.
were accidentally treated, who had their breast crushed, who had just like there's so much that
Yeah.
has happened.
Yeah.
So
It's
I've heard,
horrible.
and
It's
there's,
horrible.
and I'm
And
only hearing
listen,
the stories I'm hearing.
yeah, I get plenty of women who come on my social media and say mammograms saved their life.
Hmm.
And, that is the story that they are being told, and they're buying it hook, line, and sinker. And I get it. I get it that they feel grateful that their tumor was
Yeah.
discovered early and that they think that that's what saved their life. But the truth is that a cancer is what it is from the beginning.
Hmm.
And if it's going to be an aggressive process, it doesn't matter when you find it. And
Yeah.
if it's not going to be an aggressive process, it also doesn't matter when you find it.
Exactly.
So all this gratitude for mammograms is misplaced,
Yeah.
but I get it.
No,
I
and
get
I
it.
get it too, and I do get it. I read some stats quite a while ago. It's been a number of years, where it saves like 1 in 1,000 women's lives, but the amount of lives that it negatively impacts women who never even had cancer, who never should have had to worry about their cancer, go through unnecessary treatment. That number is so huge. So every time that one person is saying, "Well, it saved my life," know that it's also harmed quite a lot of other people. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
so
So if it saves 1 in 1,000, it harms seven.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's exponentially more
Yes.
than, and I I mean, I could argue that it doesn't even save one, but
Yeah.
that's a talk for another
Well,
time. But
exactly. It's that that person would have probably discovered it exactly anyway.
yeah,
They would have been discovered for other reasons, and then they would have
yes.
still gone through treatment and still ended up with the
If
same
it needed to be discovered,
if it
right?
needed.
So
Exactly.
there are so many that would have, because we are constantly making cancer cells in our body from the very young to the very old and everyone in between. We all make cancer cells,
Yeah.
right? But an intact immune system recognizes those cancer cells and destroyed them.
Yeah.
So, they may have been somewhere along that process of the immune system taking care of it,
Yeah.
and they just didn't give it a chance,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And so, I don't like to argue with people who are in that space
It's
because,
hard. I know.
thank God that they're alive.
Yeah.
Thank God that they have the opportunity to argue with me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't want anyone getting a mammogram because they heard that mammogram saved this one person's life, because it's not true,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
right?
you for the clarity on that. And I know that takes a lot of what is the word? A lot of vagina to
Yeah.
be able to come out and say that, a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
gumption, a lot of
We
courage.
we we call it chutzpah
Chutzpah, there we go.
in
Yeah.
Judaism. It means bravery.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, and I know the courage that it does and the bravery it takes to say that, and for anybody who wondered why I said
Well, it
vagina,
actually means nerve, but
nerve? Okay,
yeah,
nerve,
yeah, like a
wonderful.
lot of nerve.
Yeah, it does, to
Yeah,
come out and say that, and as well to say it that I just wanna put this out there, a lot of people think that their doctors are researchers, and that is something I've come to learn is a lot of doctors when they graduate from med school, they're not researcher. They stop their researching the moment they graduated. They're often recipients of information, whether it's from pharmaceutical reps or
yeah,
that they Google online like any other
or even papers.
Yes.
They're consuming papers. But I just read something this week that said upwards of 51% of articles that are published in these very mainstream important journals are
Mhm.
falsified research.
Exactly. Yep.
And
And the
so
other part,
even when you're reading it, you don't know what you're reading.
no,
You're
exactly. And
you're
this
reading
is
something that was carefully curated for you.
Yeah, Dr. Ben Goldacre, he's also has a really wonderful TED Talk and a lot of books called Bad Science that everybody needs to read, because when you understand how these journals, because again, the journals need to make money, the journals need to have people prescribing and subscribing to them. And so they are choosing it's like they're cherry picking what gets studied. And what's important to remember is what doesn't get published. So out of all the articles that are getting published, there's so much research out there that is not getting published that shows that actually, wow, our placebos work better than most of the drugs, or
Yeah.
exercise or breath work or things like that. But that stuff doesn't
Yeah.
get published because
Because
there's
it
no
doesn't,
dollar
because it
attached.
doesn't meet the narrative.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really important. So let's go back to yourself. And I love that you've been able to make meaning out of your life. And that was a really, like, for me, that was a poignant part of this talk, is the importance of making meaning in your life. But how did you go about treating your breast cancer? Because I'm sure people want to know.
Yeah. So I want to be clear that I did not have breast cancer.
Oh,
I had thyroid.
sorry, thyroid cancer. Yes.
Yeah.
Thyroid
Yeah.
cancer. Yes.
So, I I had to materially change almost everything.
Mhm.
And like everyone else, like no one comes to their disease in the same way. So I had a very bad situation at home that I had to come to terms with. I was living in a house with mold. I had to come to terms with that and have that remediated. I had to materially change the way that I ate, because I was eating in a very, very, very disordered way, because I would spend all day in the operating room and then sit in the recovery room afterwards, writing up all of my patient plans, and eat graham crackers and peanut butter, and only to learn later on that I cannot eat peanut butter. It's very, very bad for me. And I'm so severely gluten sensitive that I couldn't understand why I was waking up with brain fog every single day after I was in the OR all day. So it was such a combination of things for me. I was also completely on cortisol overdrive
Mhm.
to a point that I was so wired and tired that I couldn't sleep at night,
Mhm.
because I was all on overdrive all the time. I was burning my candle at both ends, trying to juggle being everything, doing everything. And so I had to learn a lot of forgiveness, self forgiveness. I had to learn to say no. And I literally materially changed every single thing I do. I didn't change it all at once, right? Like, I didn't come home and throw out all of my pots because they were nonstick, and throw out all of the plastic in the house, because I would have had nothing to eat out of, drink out of, clean with, wash with, you put on my skin. Like, it didn't happen all in one day. And because I educated myself, because I didn't really have help along the journey, it was very slow.
Mhm.
Like, I tried this diet because I learned about it. That didn't work. I tried this diet because I learned about it. That didn't work. It was a lot of trial and error for me. So if you look at the me that I am today, or even 3 years down the line, which is what it took me for my labs to normalize and for me to actually get better, um, that didn't happen overnight. And so what I tell people is, what I did and what worked for me, because people ask me all the time, I want to know how you healed yourself. That doesn't matter,
Mhm.
because, you might not have mold. You might not have been in a very toxic relationship. You may not have those things. You may have a trauma that you need to heal from. You may have Lyme. You may have dental amalgams that need to come out, root canals that need to be redone,
Yeah.
cavities from extracted wisdom teeth. You may have parasites. You may have dysbiosis. There are so many things that you might have to work on in order to reclaim your health. I don't know. Everyone's journey is so individual. Are there rules across the board that apply to everyone? Yeah. Like, I don't think anyone should be drinking out of plastic, right? Like, that's not good for anyone. I think everyone should be filtering their water. because drinking chemicals all day isn't good for anyone.
Mhm.
I think that, we all have to be mindful about what we put in, on, and around us. We all need to do an overhaul of our relationships and honestly ask, is this working or is this not? And
Mhm.
can I make it work or should I say goodbye?
Yeah. And
And
do
that's
that maybe
really
every
hard.
10 years or every 5 years. Like
Yeah.
have check in every year. It
Hmm.
doesn't, just because you're married doesn't mean it has to stay that way forever, but you have
Yeah.
to have that ability to and willingness to check in. And
Yeah.
that's probably one of the hardest things for people to do is really just ask themselves honestly, like, is this working for me?
Yeah. And, for my part, like, if you have, I actually don't want to be too specific about this relationship, but let's just say that, it doesn't have to be a marriage that's this just dysfunctional, because that wasn't my issue. Like, my husband is the most wonderful man in the world, and
Mm,
he has stuck by me and given me the exact amount of support I needed every step of the way,
mm,
even when he thought I was losing my mind. And like, who walks away from
mhm,
running the surgery department
yeah.
at the top of their game? He was
Mhm,
like, "What are you talking about? You're going to be a functional medicine doctor." Like, he was so amazing and continues to be amazing as I evolve along the way. But there are other meaningful relationships in people's lives. There are children, there are parents, there are employers. So,
mm,
if that relationship is so toxic that it is destroying your health, you need to move on from that.
yeah.
And I talk to people about living in a sick home. Like, some people's homes, living situations are really sick,
Mhm,
and they need to get out of there to reclaim their health. So it can be any a number of things, and it just needs to be about what's happening with you.
yeah.
And our diagnoses are messages. They are messages trying to tell us that what is happening right now is not working. And that if you want your health, you have to figure out what's not working and
Yeah.
correct it.
So, and I hear you say all that, and every single one of those boxes, because we teach our clients, it's called a whole health wheel. And so you make a wheel, you put it looks like a bicycle wheel, and in each piece of the pie, the triangle, you would put a different aspect you could look at in your life, right? And again, it doesn't mean doing it all overnight, like you said. And I really appreciate that you said that. I did not do this overnight as well. Like I haven't managed to remain, chronic disease free at 48 years old without like going through years. It's been decades of me every day
Yeah.
just improving a little bit more. And I learn
Yeah.
more and I learn more. But with this whole health wheel, you in one of the pizza pies you'd put mold. And another one you put maybe your spine is out of alignment, so a chiropractor. And another one
Yeah.
you're going to put acupuncture. And another one you're going to put your relationship and maybe all the different relationships that are negatively impacting you, et cetera, et cetera. So some people might have 20 wheels because that's how many different things. But the one piece I want to ask is, when my clients come to me, I get to tell them all the different things they can put in their wheels. But for an average listener out there, if they don't know mold impacts their health, so where can they go to learn about all these different areas of their life? Some people have no idea about the chemicals in nonstick pans and how
It's
those are
true.
known
It's true.
carcinogens.
And because of that, I wrote my book, The
Thank you.
Smart Person's Guide to Breast Cancer,
Beautiful.
because I want you to know what causes disease. And I want you to know how to understand what is being recommended to you. So in this instance, I gave you the ability to understand your pathology report and what they're talking about and why they're talking about that. And then I gave you all the questions that you need to ask your surgeon and your medical oncologist and your radiation oncologist and your reconstructive surgeon and your functional medicine doctor and your naturopath,
Mm,
because unless you have that, like, you don't know, and
mm,
you're coming into this whole season of unknowing, and it's really scary.
yeah.
It's really scary because on top of the diagnosis, people are making plans for you and speaking a language you don't speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote my book in order to give people the language, give people the understanding, and then help them build their team and make the plan that's right for them, get them through, give them the tips that they need every step along the way. If you're going to get chemo, this is what you need to do. If you're
Yeah.
going to have surgery, this is what you need to do. If you're going to have radiation, this is what you need to do. And then what you need to do after, what labs you need to follow, how you need to eat, think, move, sleep, all of it, all of it. And so I'm really, really proud of this book. And the response has been amazing. And I know that that is one way that I'm going to change the world and the conversation around breast cancer, because my mission is to change how we diagnose, treat, reverse, and screen for breast cancer.
No, and thank you for doing that. I love books. So yeah, we have a whole library. I know the stats and the number of people that actually read a book after they graduate from high school and university, and it's shocking.
Yeah.
But for individuals out there, if you can't get Dr. Simmons' book, which you can because it's available everywhere, and we're going to have the link below, please listen to the podcast because you're going to learn so much more. But I do want to thank you for taking the time to put that wisdom, that knowledge into your book. I want to also thank you for your humbleness and your ability to um, shrink your ego enough at that moment where you were at that conference to be able to see that there was another side, because that paradigm shift, making paradigm shifts, it's hard, it's painful, it's like rebirthing yourself. So you did that, and I want to thank you for doing that, because I know that that's not always easy to
Yeah.
do, and to let go of everything you've ever come to know about something and then discover that there's this whole other side. But just you sharing your story of how you did that, I hope for other people out there who are sitting there listening to the show and saying it's not possible, it's possible. This woman has done it, and she showed you exactly how she did it, and it's possible for you as well.
Yeah. And which is not to say that it wasn't super hard or super scary.
No,
Like
exactly.
leaving a place that I called home, where I experienced enormous success in every sense of the world, highly respected, well compensated, like all of that. It was so, so, so scary.
Yeah.
But we're women, we can do hard things.
Yes. Yes, we are. And you also, I just thought about a new book for you. They say, the research says that humans want to avoid pain, and you didn't do that. You moved in the direction of pain by letting go of all of the success you had built, the money that was coming in, the fame, the everything, and you moved in the direction of pain,
Yeah.
right? Which we do say when you're birthing, embrace the contraction, like welcome the contraction, welcome the pain. It'll actually be easier. And I've seen that many times over when I've been able to
Or
be with.
maybe I'm just not that bright. I
Well,
don't know. I don't know.
but there's just something really beautiful in what you did, that you went against what is told that is human nature, to avoid pain. And so just that in itself for a next book for you, I think would be really incredible, just to show that, and maybe written for other doctors, because I attend the PCRM conference and the, other plant-based conferences and the nutrition conferences, and the amount of fear that I see in the participants in the audience, and they're saying it to me like, how am I going to do this? I don't know how to do this. Um, and bless you, bless you. And, but to hear this coming from another medical doctor, I think is, you telling this side of your story, for me, that was really powerful. Yes, the story of mammograms. Yes, the story of, get rid of the mold and everything. That's really important. But this story, because we do need an overhaul of our medical system, and it's going to require a lot of physicians stepping out of their comfortableness and stepping in towards the pain, but that
Yeah.
pain will transition to being this beautiful new light that we need to see in our medical system.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show. We're going to have all the links to your website. Maybe just share with verbally to the audience where they can find you at your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is Real Health MD. It's kind of right above my head.
Great.
And then you can find me on all the social media outlets. I'm Dr. Jen Simmons, and my Jen has 2 N's. If you are someone who is just looking for prevention, I have the Breast Owner's Manual, and we'll provide you with the link so that anyone can have that. And then again, if you're anywhere along a breast cancer journey, you can get a copy of my book. We'll send you the link for the Smart Person's Guide to Breast Cancer. And if you want to hear my voice, I have a podcast every week called Keeping Abreast with Dr. Jen. So lots and lots of ways to hear from me if you want to hear from me. And I always want to know what you want to hear. So you can go ahead and suggest who you would like to hear on my podcast, and I'll make sure you get them.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. It has been a true delight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you everyone for listening. That was a powerful reminder from Dr. Jen Simmons that healing is not just about treating symptoms, but about reclaiming the roots of our health with courage and curiosity. If this conversation on challenging the status quo, understanding true breast health, and the functional medicine approach resonated with you, here's how you can dive deeper. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube and hit the bell so you never miss a conversation. You can follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can join our daily community on Instagram and Facebook for insights, recipes, and inspiration on using food as medicine to heal. If you'd like to connect with Dr. Jen Simmons and her vital work, visit her website at realhealthmd.com. The links will be in the show notes below. Or head on over to your local bookstore and get her essential book, The Smart Person's Guide to Breast Cancer. Or you can listen to her podcast at Keeping Abreast with Dr. Jen. And if you'd like to learn about the healing work we do at Richer Health and to begin your own foundational healing journey to reverse chronic diseases and mental health disorders, you can grab the latest edition of Eat Real to Heal or dive into our step-by-step online training program for lifelong support. So thank you so much for listening. And remember, the bravest step is often the one you take toward a new understanding. Until next time.